Good afternoon. My name is Alexandra. I am the founder of EAG Tech Talents, a HR career consultancy for tech leaders, connecting talents and companies, and I am your host today. Welcome to the Global Expat Mobility Panel. The format of the meeting is we will have speakers, session followed by networking in the breakout rooms and a Q&A at the end. This is a 1.5 hour event, which is recorded. Our technical host for this meeting is Nikolai. Before we start the event, I am going to hand over to Nikolai to share a few crucial points.
Yeah. Thank you, Alexandra. At this point, I would just say, please enjoy the panel, and we are lucky to have Alexandra today to moderate this event. And I will come back in the end to tell some extra special orientation for our Zoom breakout rooms. In the meantime, don't be shy, write your questions in the chat, and we'll take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikolai, and SIBB for hosting this webinar. Today, we will discuss relocation to German-speaking countries in times of pandemic. You will get information on relocation processes from the USA, China to Germany and Austria. First, let me introduce Because Berlin, the partner of SIBB and its founder, Karen Kargar. Karen, the floor is yours.
Karen, you're on mute.
Sorry about that, just 1 second. Thanks so much, Alexandra, for the introduction. It was very kind of you. And thank you as well to Nikolai and to the team at SIBB for having us here today and partnering with us for the panel. We really appreciate that. So as you already heard, I'm the CEO and founder of a company here in Berlin called Rising. And we're a company that helps cities and communities to grow sustainably with strategic talent attraction campaigns. But today, as Alexandra mentioned, I'm going to talk about Because Berlin. We are the people who created Because Berlin and the ones who manage everything behind it. And with today's topic being expats and global mobility, we thought this was a perfect place to let you know about us and what we do. And with some more detail. For us, it's an all English language portal that we created and that we manage for the Berlin Partner. If you don't know about Berlin Partner, that's an institute in Berlin, a private public institute that works with the Berlin Senate and also a network of companies here to grow the economy of the city. The aim of our project is to let the world know what it's like to live and work in Berlin. And we also do this because we believe everyone in the world deserves to live and work where they can feel free. And that's not the case everywhere in the world, so we welcome them to Berlin. We also guide and help people on settling in once they're here. And all of this, everything that I'll be talking about today, these are all free services from the city. They don't cost anything. Something that's really special about our project, so we have a website and you can find a lot of information, but something that most other websites don't have is a contact person. So you can read through our website, find lots of information and links, and then if you have questions, you can write to our email address. And there's a person on the other side, that's our welcome team. That's the, also part of the Rising team. You can write questions to them. You can even set up a call if you need more help than that. And there are a lot of questions and the themes range and they're also highly sensitive. So we can't answer everything on our own, which is why we work closely with Berlin Partner and other members of the Berlin administration. So, for example, we work with Berlin Partner often with a team there called the BIS, which is the Business Immigration Service. And they're amazing. They help companies with everything that has to do with visa and residency permits and things like that. Or let's say another example is somebody wants to move here with their creative company and they want to do some research on the local industry, aspects of their company. Then we would say, fine, we can help you with this much. Then we'll find somebody from Berlin Partner. And in that case, it would be the creative industries department that would help you to get your company up and running here. We have a lot of tech companies who reach out to us, of course. So if a tech startup contacted us and the founder wanted to know more about financing and how to get support for their company here, we could work with Because Berlin Partner, but also we work closely with the IHK, which is the Berlin Chamber of Commerce, and they have a wide range of programs and classes, workshops to help international entrepreneurs build their companies in Berlin. And it's also for free and in English. It's amazing. So we work closely with them when we can't help any further. And today I thought I'd talk a little bit about the pandemic, because that's the topic, about mobility during the pandemic. And I guess it's interesting to say that we spent all of 2019 developing Because Berlin, the idea, the website, all the tools, and then we launched at the beginning of 2020, and our plans included events all around the world, live events, and we had to cancel all of those and rethink the strategy for those first months and the messaging. And what we did was decide to do digital events, as many of us did. And the first few were about help during the pandemic. You can imagine those times were quite confusing for a lot of people, especially for the expats already living in Berlin, maybe not speaking German, no family or old close friends around, worrying times. So we did our first digital town hall calls about how to get help then, and how to get the financial aid from the city that was possible if you were a freelancer or a company owner. And we even did one call in Turkish, because we work closely with the Turkish community there and also needing support. And with our Turkish partners, we did one call in Turkish. I didn't speak Turkish in that one, but I was on the call. I did the intro and I did the wrap up at the end. So we all managed to get through that phase together. And at the same time, we continually helped the people move here during that phase and then beyond. We then continued with our town hall call series beyond help, Corona help, and we had topics such as female entrepreneurship in Berlin or building international and diverse teams in Berlin. And the series has been a really big success. If you want to watch those recordings, you'll find them on the Because Berlin YouTube page. And that's about it. I could talk more and more, but I'd like to hand over the stage. Just one last note, as a panelist and a guest today, I'm really excited to be here because I myself moved to Berlin in 1994. I didn't speak any German. I had no network. It was not easy. And this, there was nothing in English at that time. And you were kind of a crazy person when you did that back then. And a lot of the work that I do now and is based on the experience I've had, or let's say the help that I didn't get back then. And I'm thrilled about all the help that is available now, talks like these with experts like we have today on the panel, and the work that's happening to help cities become more welcoming here and all over the world. So that's a brief overview about Because Berlin, our team, our network, how we help people, and I'll be happy to stick around and answer any questions you have today during the networking sessions or the Q&A later on.
Thank you so much, Karen. Yeah, everyone, please feel free to reach out to Karen to discuss how to land in Berlin. And now our speakers today are Petra Schweiger, Program Manager Accelerating Circularity, and Akinwande Lalude, co-founder Sermonis.AI in Berlin. And it is exciting to hear your stories today. I am going to ask questions and give floor to our speakers. So I guess the question would be to either of you. So why did you decide to move your business to Europe from Asia or the US, especially during the challenging times of pandemic? I see Petra's mic is open.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Alexandra and Nikolai. It's great to be with you and great to be with your audience today. So yeah, my name is Petra. I'm currently on a project for accelerating circularity. I help textile and apparel value chain partners to integrate sustainability and become part of a circular system. Before I moved back to Europe, I had a corporate career with European and global retail and fashion brands in supply chain. I was living and working in China, Bangladesh, and Hong Kong for the past almost 20 years. So yeah, as Alexandra is saying, I moved back just a couple of months ago. So for me, didn't have much to do with the pandemic, I have to say. So I think Karen was mentioning something similar before when I had my own business, and in 2019, so I was working towards working remotely for a long time already. 2019, I had everything set in place, and then I was thinking to myself, 2020 sounds like a good year. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be millennial, move around a little bit, work here and there, being able to work remotely anyway. And that was I was trying to do, but then the pandemic hit, didn't go away, but I had taken all the decisions already. I moved out of my apartment, had everything in a warehouse, but eventually I was stuck. So business was down because the pandemic hit. I had, and I still have, a B2B trading company. And I'm also a consultant, as I mentioned, in textiles. So I had barely any contracts at that time. Everybody was stalling, waiting for better times. There was so much unclarity, uncertainty around. So this was definitely quite an uncomfortable time. Lots of challenges when you're freelancing, when you're pretty much on your own. So before that, when I was taking all these decisions and planning to move out of my comfort zone, I was playing with that thought already, like after a couple of years, I may be ready to move back to Europe. But yeah, so everything accelerated during that pandemic time, of course. I got then a project offered here in Europe. So it's for accelerating circularity. It's a US-based nonprofit organization, but the project takes place in Europe. And because of time zones and time differences, it was better for me to move back. So in the end, I took a very quick decision. Within 2 weeks, I moved back to Europe after almost 20 years not living here. So, and that's what I did then in July. So I moved back, and yeah, since then I've been here and working.
All right, that's really, yeah, really unstoppable. So you weren't really stopped by pandemic or anything, and you made it happen. You're now driving the sustainability project. So we will discuss more about that. We all, want to be more circular, especially in times of Christmas holidays, I guess. And my next question would be to Akinwande. I'm really excited to hear more about your project. How did you move from the US, and what was, the complexity around your move, and how was it affected your business?
Yeah, so I'm Akinwande. I'm a co-founder of Sermonis.AI, and we produce a Siri-like program for enterprises. So early on, I guess before the pandemic started, I was traveling in Europe for vacation, and then I was also working remotely. I was working as a management consultant. So there was a lot of stuff that I could do on my computer, on my desktop. And it was quite kind of comfortable at the beginning. And then I started talking to some of my friends from undergraduate. We went to the University of Southern California, and we were talking about, oh, maybe this is the time to do our startup, right? The idea has been floating around for a while, and during the pandemic, it seemed as though there wasn't so much other stuff happening. There was lots of lockdowns. And because we knew starting something like an AI platform was something we could do remotely, we began working on it. And I was already in Berlin, and I decided to stay in Berlin after my vacation was over because the pandemic had already started. So I started working here and really trying to figure out where the best place to start our startup was. And I found out about programs like SIBB through the startup stipendium. Like actually the first one that I applied to was with WISTA. And this is through one of the universities. I didn't get in, but what I found out was there was an entire network of startup stipendium grants and programs, and they directed me towards SIBB. And then once I saw that SIBB was what looked like a good option, particularly for an AI startup, where we would be kind of taken seriously even in our very early stage, I started talking to these guys, and I was like, hey, this Berlin kind of startup environment looks like a place where we'd be able to get just a little bit of funding, some support for our landing, so it'd be more like a soft landing. we could really make this work. And then over the course of like 6 months, we applied to the program, and then one of my co-founders moved from Paris, and then as we got closer to the program, another one moved from LA, and then we kind of got launched in Berlin. So that's how it happened. And I think really we got a lot of support through the program by getting introduced to Partner Berlin. So we had already heard about it. We knew that it existed, but we didn't really know how to interface with it. But then through SIBB, we got introduced, and that's how we got our visas, and we kind of had our soft landing.
Got it. Yes, that's really very clear, right? Like you've taken certain steps and you utilize the opportunity to work remotely, which was the best thing outcome out of the pandemic, the fact that we can have these remote events and work. And what steps would you recommend someone who is looking for scholarship in Europe or in Germany, Berlin in particular, if somebody is looking for, start their tech business?
Yeah, so I would say that there are a reasonable number of resources that you can find online if you search for the Berlin Startup Stipendium. And then once you find, and I think it's on somewhere on berlin.de, there's a list of all of the different scholarship programs. And that's kind of, I think that's a good starting point. Getting that list, putting together a calendar for when all of the applications are due, that's kind of a good starting point. And then trying to do a comparison with your timeline of landing and getting started. So you can say, oh, how long is it going to take me to, get my housing? How long is it going to take me to figure out the application process? How much runway do I have before I really need to start getting paid by something? So once you figured out those things, you can figure out which program is best for you. And that's kind of the way that I look at it. And I think that there's a reasonable number of resources once you know the names of the programs to find. I think that's kind of the key, is knowing what program you have to look for. So like the Startup Stipendium is what we had to find out that we needed to know, because we ended up in a lot of different places before we got there.
All right, thank you. I hope we can share those resources, or somebody or everyone you can connect, I guess, with Akinwande on social media like LinkedIn, and connect with you for questions. It's really thank you so much for sharing that resources. And how about I guess same question, what about your project now? Like so your co-founder, like how is your project now growing? So you have the AI virtual assistants, right? Like, is it for B2B or is it a B2C project? How is it developing now?
Yeah, so it's a B2B project, and right now we're still very early stage, but we've gotten through our first couple of tests, our proof of concept, and now we're ramping up funding for our MVP. So that's kind of what we're in. We're in our pre-seed angel round of funding. So we've kind of kicked it off a little bit, but really it's going to kick off at the beginning of next year. When people are coming back from their holiday break. And that's once again one of those things that through the program we were able to see, like, what does the angel network look like? What does the infrastructure look like around fundraising? We also had a couple of talks with different lawyers who were able to answer our questions about how do we take like first money in our company. So that's kind of some critical things. And I think it's slightly different between different geographies. So that's something that you can definitely figure out here.
All right, thank you so much. It's so great I will ask more questions later on. I wanted to ask Petra, and what were your solutions into, let's say, re-entering, right, Europe after being away, like you said, for 20 years? What were the most challenging things and your solutions that you come throughout your journey?
Yeah, good question. So for me, so I grew up where I moved back where I grew up basically, but after such a long time, and even before I moved to Asia, of course, I went to university. So I moved out of where I actually grew up. So a couple of years have passed since, which is a bit like, yes, you move back home. You have been away for so long. Things here change, you yourself change, and suddenly you are here in the times of pandemic. We here in Austria keep on having lockdowns all the time. So and plus I'm in a village. So it makes things a bit like, okay, how do I really connect with my friends that I've been having since childhood? But then of course also like finding new people. So that has been a bit of I wouldn't call it struggle, but yes, it's a bit uneasy since I have moved back. I, as a consultant and taking over projects which are medium term most of the times, and so they are somehow feeling usually like a startup, which means also I work a lot in times like these where you have all virtual, so you work from home, you don't see anybody in real life. That is also not the easiest, especially because I moved back. For me, the industry, even though I've worked for European companies before, but always from the Asian sourcing office. So really being thrown in for a new project, which is pretty much a startup, connecting with so many different stakeholders. In our projects, we have 80 plus stakeholders along the value chain within our working groups, like reaching out to everybody, introducing, getting to know each other, understanding their expectations, why they're part of these projects. So yeah, that was a great challenge, a positive one, I would think, because it definitely also allowed me to increase my network within a very short period of time. So that was exciting, challenging at the same time, but still also very exciting. And for me, then also with my experience in the textile and apparel supply chain, from pretty much production floor to shop floor while living and working in Asia for so long, to really connecting with brands, collectors, sorters, recyclers here in Europe, understanding the innovation level, which is really good also, and really building the bridge and connecting the dots. That has been very fascinating.
Yeah, you're totally building the bridge between Asia and European offices, right, for the apparel industry. And would you ever go back to Hong Kong?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I mean, Hong Kong for sure, yes, or Asia anyway, because of the experience I have and because of the line of work I'm in the industry I'm in, for sure. I'm very sure it's gonna take me back to Asia one day, and I'm definitely open to it, yeah.
All right, that's great. And now I wanted to ask Karen, what it takes to be a successful applicant for scholarships that, because Berlin, as I understand, assists with, are there any upcoming workshops or webinars your organization is organizing for anyone who is also interested to be a successful case for Berlin?
That's a big question. And we're the kind of people in between the decision makers, you know, the applicants. So I can't really say, but before I forget, I'll say we happen to have a town hall call, kind of a webinar on exactly this topic 2 days ago. So if you go onto our YouTube channel, Because Berlin, we had one called Being an International Entrepreneur in Berlin. And we had, as I just mentioned, somebody from the IHK, the German, so it's IHK, the Berlin Chamber of Commerce here in Berlin. They have so many programs. I was amazed. We had prepared the call before, but the man we had on the call from that organization had so many helpful links that he put into the chat. And they were brochures. They have monthly, I think, workshops about all the basics about how to sign up. They have all the financial possibilities, as Akinwande mentioned. The scholarship, I'm not sure, but for example, one of the funds that you can apply for is the Gründungsbonus every year. If you're under a year old as a startup, you can apply if it's an innovative idea and it's a tech product, or I don't know all the criteria. You can get up to 50,000 euros right away, and then you're able to receive a low interest loan, so Gründungsbonus. And he mentioned all these things on that call the other day, so I can recommend watching that. And what's also important is to do all the research, as we just heard. It's a lot, but there are a lot of things available if you do the work, and do the work ahead of time is what we always tell people. Don't land in Berlin necessarily. Like if you're thinking of coming, do all your research ahead of time, especially about your industry. We had a wonderful woman from Berlin Partner on the call a couple of days ago, and she said, try not to be surprised. And I told her I would steal that quote because I loved it. And she said, do your best to not be surprised when you get somewhere in a new country, because you will be surprised inevitably that your industry or your company is not going to work the way you thought it would in that new country. So do all the research you can. And there are resources at Berlin Partner. They have teams for every industry. They have, that woman was from the START Alliance, which helps companies from different cities around the world to align. So do your research is what I can say is the most important thing, because there is, in our case, I know that there is a wealth of help here available for you, but do your research to find the right one. And Akinwande said the same thing. Actually, there's just so much there. Take the time to find out early.
Wow, that's great. And I love the quote. Yes, do not be surprised. It's, I think, really relatable to Asia or Russia or Europe, and moving somewhere even after even returning back to your own home country, it might feel different. And we actually have also Invest Hong Kong. It's the government organization for Hong Kong startups. Karen is nodding. So yeah, we actually have done event before with Petra on her previous startup, how Invest Hong Kong helps startups in Asian economy. So it's great that, you know, there are resources, like you said, there's always resources. And all right, I think we're moving to the networking session. So I'd like to thank again our speakers, and I'm handing over to Nikolai to share technical points about networking in breakout rooms.
Alexandra, thank you a lot for the wonderful session. I would like to ask first a question from Francisco Schreier. I guess as for space of interchange, that's first what we are going to do now. We do this direct network in breakout rooms, but later on, I guess the best way for you, Francisco, is to connect to others, is connect through LinkedIn, to join the groups like Because Berlin or SIBB, because we host a lot of international events during the year. And everything else you can ask in breakout rooms. Some technical, really short technical orientation. I have randomly put you in 3 breakout rooms. So when I click the button, still on the session on the beginning, you will be automatically directed into that room. For the best user experience, please make your Zoom full screen and turn on your microphone and video, so you could interact with others most effectively. And it's possible to switch to other room. You need to find the button breakout rooms and select other rooms that tab. Okay, with all that, I start the sessions and see you in your room.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for the networking session. It was very useful to meet everybody in more detail and network and chat. And now we have time for a quick Q&A session. And if there's anyone who has questions, and I can start with the question we had in our room, which is, in the times of pandemic, how do you find the collaboration and social integration, especially in developing new projects? What are the learning practices you can share with us? And that's the question to our speakers. What are any, best practices you find to collaborate and to develop business in times of pandemic?
So maybe I can start off, because that's actually a big question. It's looking at the project I'm currently in for accelerating circularity. I mentioned before that we have 80 plus stakeholders from across Europe in the different working groups. Not being able to meet physically, which of course would be another challenge even outside pandemic, but it is very challenging we're always talking about, you know, we have these great terms of pre-competitive collaboration. That's a challenge. How do we get to that stage that people feel comfortable enough to share about their businesses? We all, within the project, we are looking into establishing a circular system when it comes to post-consumer textiles, which means we have, for one, we have a lot of competitors in these pre-competitive groups, but then of course we have businesses, suppliers, and buyers in there that have different requirements to really, on this big scale, and also more like from a helicopter perspective, that's a challenge, pandemic or not. But just the point I want to make is everybody talks about collaboration and how important it is in terms of, especially when it comes to sustainability, social, environmental impact. But are different organizations and businesses really understanding what collaboration means? I am myself, I'm figuring out while doing it and working on it. That's a bit of a challenge for me.
Thank you so much, Petra, for sharing that. 80 plus people, that's a lot. That's, yeah, you're definitely very busy despite working remotely. And do we have any other questions? Or any other shares? Would you like to share your view and your solutions to this challenge? Well, I can definitely say that, yeah, this, what we discussed, this format of webinars where everyone has opportunity to share, right, within like 5 minutes or so, present their business and ideas, and I guess what they are looking for, that's been very effective. So, and I've attended many events in the US, in Asia, and even in South Africa. So that was really interesting. So I think, and also what I see, like the collaboration is challenging. I see that still, you know, relevance to the geography is still important, or to the language. So the community, local community, they still want somebody who is based there. So if anyone looking for network in Russia or Asia, please feel free to connect with me. I'll post my details. And yeah, so yeah, I look forward to attending more of these workshops. I find them very, very useful for my type of business. Karen, are you?
I think, you know, I could go on and on about our webinars in Burkas Berlin. I can just say join our calls. Mano from our team wrote into the chat how to find us. You know, the email address at Because Berlin. Get in touch, or with us directly on LinkedIn. You can contact me if you want, and just stay in touch. I guess the advice is to not be shy and go out there, which is hard when you're stuck home and all that. But I think is just to go out and do the work. As someone from New York, from the New York office told me recently, you gotta hustle. So even if we're stuck home and you've got a new company or you want to move, you still got to go out there. And it's a big ask with these cold months ahead of us, but we still have to do it. So let's go.
Thank you, Karen. Well, I guess, yeah, we will start then wrapping up, I guess, slowly. So that's all the time we have today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you again, SIBB, Nikolai, Petra, Karen, Akinwande, and everyone who helped making this event happen. If anyone would like to learn more about business opportunities in Berlin, or just to connect, please stay on at the end. And that's it. Thank you so much.